Hey, everybody, and welcome to Common Good Conversations, a podcast creating deeper narratives at the intersection of faith and politics for the common good in West Michigan. My name is Nick Brock. That is Shawn Skinner.
How are we guys doing today?
Yes,
that was perfect.
We are coming to you live from Park Theater in Holland. And Shawn, we have real people here, just as we hope for.
Real people.
Real people.
It's not terrifying at all.
No, it's not. Shawn is feeling right at home. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We are really excited to have you with us, and we are thrilled to have two great guests join us as well. Today, we have the privilege of being in conversation with two candidates, a Republican and a Democrat running for Ottawa County Commissioner in separate districts. So I'll give you an overview of what's going to happen this evening. First, you'll get to hear from Mark Northrup of Hudsonville. And he is in District 5, and he's running to defeat Commissioner, Board Chair, and leader of Ottawa Impact, Joe Moss, in the August 6th primary. And if you know anything about Ottawa County politics, the primary election is where, more often than not, local elections are decided for Republican candidates. So Mark will come up here shortly, and he's going to give us a little segment. He's going to talk to us during a little segment that we call Your Opinion. Then after Mark, we're going to have Chris Kleinians of Holland, and he is running in District 2. Now, Chris has been selected to run as the Democratic candidate in District 2 for the County Commissioner recall election against Ottawa Impact Commissioner Lucy Ebel, scheduled to take place on May 7. And Chris will be here for this main segment for our big conversation. And finally, and this is what I'm looking forward to the most, I think, Shawn, is we're going to have Mark and Chris up here near the end of the program, and we're going to talk to the both of them, but we would love to have some audience participation. So we'd love to have a Q&A. So at that back table there near that screen, my lovely assistant, also known as my dear wife, she has some note cards and pencils, and if you could just write a brief question on there, she'll bring those up here near the end of the program, and we'll take those questions, and we'll give an opportunity for Mark and Chris to answer those. And finally, before we move on, be sure to grab a drink. There are beverages over at the bar, alcoholic beverages, pizza, some munchies if you get a little hungry, because Shawn and I already have ours. What do you have, Shawn?
Yellowstone whiskey. And
Yep.
Nothing loosens up politics like a little whiskey.
Right. You need to get a little liquid courage in this here. So we've got ours, and hopefully you get yours as well, so you can join us in that. All right. Before we dive into all of that, we need to first kick off the program with why we started the podcast.
Why did we start the podcast?
Well, I wanted to start this little story with a little story about nasal irrigation.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Nasal irrigation, boy, and specifically these Neomed sinus rinse things. You know, I know that, so there are the people here, but there's also going to be our listeners online. And so, you know, the nasal irrigation comes in this little plastic bottle, right? You fill it with water, then it's got this special solution. And it's to clear your nasal passages when it gets a little stuffy.
Yeah, it's not pleasant at all to do that thing at all.
Well, it's not extremely horrible, and that was the dilemma last night. So we were at our father-in-law's house last night.
Yep.
And he had this dilemma about using nasal irrigation to help him, you know, live his life better.
He wasn't going to do it at all.
He was pretty scared.
He was so against it. I don't know why he seems so terrified of it.
I think he had seen like a bad YouTube video. Or
that can happen.
Maybe none at all, and he had just imagined it in his head.
Well, he did ask us how far I needed to go up his nose, and he pulled out the little tube, and he thought the tube went up his nose, not just the thing. Yeah,
we were like, no, the tube doesn't go up your nose. You put the tube down into the bottle, into the water portion, then you gently squeeze it. But I had to convince him, and you did as well. Like the whole room was trying to convince him that this is going to help you live your best life during the spring season and beyond. And I can say I've taken it a lot, and it works for me.
It's worked for me, but it's never been pleasant. I would not do it if I didn't have to.
Well, I mean, the worst part.
But at least to give it a shot. Trying to get them to do it is like trying to get the kids to eat broccoli at the house. It's like you'll like it. Trust me, it's good for you. No, I'm not doing it. Just do it. Well, so here are the tips that I gave him, and jokingly, I said, first, you gotta squeeze your butt cheeks because you're a little nervous, right? You gotta pucker up, get ready for it. Then you put the bottle to your nose, you squeeze gently, and you gotta make sure that your face and mouth is over the sink. Yeah. Preferably.
Because it's all going to come out.
You're going to make a mess.
And if you have a long beard like me, you need to hold your beard back and let it go.
Just tuck it right in your shirt.
Yeah, I've tried it before, or I could tie it off, but it doesn't work great.
No, I imagine not.
No.
Well, that was some good banter for the evening.
Well, so that was, I think that was a nice segue, a nasal irrigation story to segue into why we started this podcast, because our podcast idea started at our in-laws' house.
Yep, around a table with a whiskey and just average conversation between two guys, and a lot of other, families around dinner tables end up talking about things like faith and politics and some of the no-nos that you're not supposed to talk about at a round table at home, and fights that occur due to different sides of opinions and everything. Yeah. But we decided that we would try to do our best on being able to hear each other, even if we didn't agree on our same opinions or whatnot.
That's right. So looking over all this probably, our conversation started about 2-3 years ago. And me recognizing that, hey, we're having some really good conversations, and we're having these conversations in a way that's helpful. So over the past few weeks and with this podcast, I've put together a little blurb here to help us describe our origin story. So I'm going to read it. You let me know what you think. All right, let me know if it's on track or if we need to do anything else. So
if it's off, I'll ask Christine in the back. She'll correct you.
She'll know. Here we go. Quote, a few years ago, brothers-in-law Nick and Shawn started doing the unthinkable at family gatherings, talking about politics and faith at the dinner table. While at times tense and cautious, those conversations were filled with curiosity, nuance, grace, and humor. And wanting to lean into that experience, they decided to start a podcast, which you see today. Common Good Conversations is a weekly opportunity for Nick and Shawn to talk about the politics and faith of West Michigan by being curious, nuanced, grace-filled, and humorous. And perhaps they'll learn something along the way. The end.
Sounds fair to me. Sounds fair.
It sounds fair?
Correct.
And right?
Yep.
Okay.
Did that sound right to you, Christina? Yeah, perfect. Paying attention. Got it.
From way at the back, we get the thumbs up. So that's just to give you a little overview of why we started this podcast, because in my experience, and I'm sure it's been in your experience as well, that talking about faith and politics around the dinner table in family environments or really good friends is really difficult to do, especially in these times now where politics can be so polarized. One party not wanting to move from the other. And so we just want to encourage people to continue to have those conversations, to continue to try to move in ways that are good for each other. Because I had been hearing a lot about that and how people were wanting to do better. And so this is our encouragement to them. Okay. Let's move on next to our segment called Your Opinion. I'm going to invite Mark Northrup up to the stage. And Mark, when you get up here, you can sit right here, get comfy on this chair. But I'm going to read for you what this little segment is about. It's called Your Opinion. And I'd hope there are plenty of you out there today in the crowd and then also listening online where you would participate in this conversation as well. So what it is we don't tell people we disagree with to be quiet or to stop talking. Instead, we encourage people to wake up, to stand up, and to speak up for the common good in West Michigan. So let your little light shine, be the salt of the earth, and amplify your voice on this podcast. Welcome to Your Opinion. And we welcome Mayor Mark Northrup of Hudsonville.
Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us.
So, Mark, I'm just going to let you fire away here. We already talked about this in the beginning. So, just to be clear, Mark wrote a couple editorial pieces that were put in the Holland Sentinel, and he did this of his own volition. And I'm a reader of the Holland Sentinel, and I think he had a lot of ideas that were tracking with mine. I said, "Hey, Mark, just come on up. I'd love for you to read your pieces here. They're real short, and then we're just going to ask a few follow-up questions." So, Mark, are you ready? You're scrambling through your papers.
I'm ready to go. The Sentinel had an online subscription base of 700 people before Ottawa Impact.
Only 700?
And now it's 4,000.
4,000 people.
And you wonder why. Now, the editor of the Sentinel, Sarah, has been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize on her reporting of Ottawa Impact and what's the discourse that's happened in our county. I hope she gets the Pulitzer. Wouldn't that be a feather in the cap of those of us in Holland that we have a small paper, still viable, people still read it, people still care about what's happening in their local community.
That's right. I hope so as well.
So as you mentioned, I've written a couple letters here to the editor. One is dated back in January, I think. And it's kind of just a short one. As you mentioned, I am the mayor of Hudsonville, been the mayor nearly 10 years, and have had a lifetime of service to my country. The letter reads, I'm asking that Joe Moss, who is the chair of the commission, not to run for a second term as my county commissioner, which would be District 5. The list of reasons is too long, which most of us are familiar with, not the least of which is the millions of tax dollars squandered on personal agendas and unnecessary lawsuits. And by the way, a lot of severances. Give it a rest, Joe. Move on. You have made your point, and the county now needs to move on. Do what is best for your community. It's a plea. How many roads could we have fixed in our county, I wonder, if you had not wasted so many taxpayer dollars? We need to return to good governance, professional leadership, fiscal responsibility, open meetings, honest and productive agendas, kindness, and empathy. Let someone else be the GOP candidate. And that person now just happens to be me, because I'm in District 5. I am the most able to take on Joe Moss and move on with goodness. Because we don't have goodness. We lost goodness in our county. So that's the first letter. The second letter I wrote right after our health director, which we're probably all familiar with, long drawn-out affair. When they came on board, they were looking for a witch hunt to punish anybody that advocated for masks. And it was just driven out of mean, vicious, get-even vendettas. And we watched this thing play out over at least a year. And at one point, there was talk. They cut the health department in half. And they said, we're going to give you $4 million, health director. Just go away. Just go away. Well, obviously, people said, $4 million? You can't do that. That's a lot of money. We can't buy her off for $4 million. So they went to a 12-hour session, closed session, and came to a decision. So my letter was written shortly after they made their decision. It says, watching a train wreck in the county commission, thanks for nothing, once again, to Joe Moss and the county commission. You had a 12-hour closed session meeting and arrived at the exact same place from a year ago. Adeline Hamlin is still our health director, and no, she didn't get the $4 million payout. However, she does have nearly a $200,000 lawsuit to pay her attorney's fees. Incidentally, as the mayor of Hudsonville for 9 years, I have never had a meeting go beyond 1.5 hours. Why? Because we respect people's time on my city commission. We need a county commission to focus on doing good and not wasting time and squandering money on lawsuits and severances. The next county commissioners need to focus on value-added work such as how to build our economy, which they haven't done. They're too busy squabbling. We need better roads, such as a new interchange at 196 and the 48th. We need to build more housing stock using the various tax incentives in the state toolbox. There's lots. We need more affordable daycare for our working families so they can both work, or the mom can work. A family must now wait over a year to put their child in daycare. We need to build our economy. We have a wonderful place to live. We need to keep it that way. A county with good salaries, available housing, efficient transportation systems, and quality daycare. Now, on my city commission, we have worked diligently on all of those, with noted success. We have precise, agenda-driven city commission meetings that last, surprise, an hour. Surely, the county could do the same. It isn't rocket science, for crying out loud. It's just called professional leadership. We need to right this ship. Oh, and by the way, can somebody explain to me why housing values have recently dropped in our county? Just asking. Could it be cause and effect? So if you notice a little passion there, this is personal. These are my friends. These are my neighbors. This is my county. This is where I live. It's been diminished by the rancor and the polarization and the politicization, everything at the county. They trust nobody but their narrow focus agenda. They're wasting time and money. Now, money is important, but more importantly, the value of time that's been dedicated not to the people, but to their personal vindictive agendas. Mm-hmm. We're not winning.
Yeah. So I want to take you back there. So I want to take you back to the first piece that you had, because you talk a bit about that, and I want you to elucidate that for us. So it's you state that, quote, we need to return to good governance, professional leadership, fiscal responsibility, open meetings, honest and productive agendas, kindness, and empathy. So here's the question. As a Republican elected official and now a candidate in District 5, what makes you believe that Republican voters want to see another GOP candidate for county commissioner, to see those values?
Okay, so let's talk about cities. Cities, we are not party declared to be elected officials. We don't talk politics at the city. It's not allowed. We just don't do it. We don't tolerate it. We focus on what we're supposed to be focused on. Budgets, roads, schools, funding, health departments. Those are all things we're mandated to take care of. This outlying rancor about prayer and whatever the polarized issue is in the national press doesn't apply at the local level. Why are we going there? Now, I admit I'm a Republican. I even validated Joe Moss early on because I thought he was a better candidate at the moment. I was hoodwinked, I admit it, as many of my friends and colleagues were. I am a Republican. It more closely aligns to my personal values. I will not deny that. I am not a RINO. I am not a MAGA. I'm a conservative Republican that believes in the Constitution first and foremost. But being a Republican aligns more with my personal values. Now, having said that, we all have some values we may disagree with. I disagree with several of the Democratic values. That doesn't mean I don't like them. Doesn't mean they're my enemy. It means we're political rivals. We view the world differently. I love them as much as anybody else. I have family that's gay. I have family that struggles with other identity issues. We have to embrace them all, love them all. They have free will. I love them just the same. They're not bad people. We disagree. That's the short of it. But my values more closely identify with being a Republican. And by the way, one of the reasons we live here, which has 75% Republican population, I mean, that's who we are in West Michigan. We are faith-based Republicans for the most part.
Yeah, let me drill down into that a little bit, and then Shawn, I'd love for you to go next. So you speak about being hoodwinked. You know, initially you had, thought that Joe Moss was a great candidate, but then things were not going the way that you expected, and so there were some grumblings. Not only you had some grumblings about that, but then amongst your friends. So like that friend base, or probably perhaps within your own family, Like, so what are some of the conversations that people are having? Like, hey, Mark, you need to run, or what makes you think that like you have a base of people, of Republicans or whoever, really, just voters in general that are like, I want nothing more to do with Ottawa Impact because A, B, and C. But what makes you kind of think that you have people in your corner?
So Nick, we all have reached a point in our lives where we realize we have certain skills and we're able. It'd be a heck of a lot easier just to stay the mayor in a great city, collect Social Security, retire, play golf. It would be. I admit
real
that.
nice.
Certainly. Wouldn't that be nice?
Haven't played. How many times did you play golf this year?
Once.
Yeah.
Once.
It was a simulator at somebody's house, but it counts.
But you still have a passion. There's a passion for goodness here. Both of you men. You want to add value to your economy and to your community. If I'm able, it'd be so much easier just to be in the sidelines and say, let somebody else. But the Joe Mosses of the world need to be stood up to. Who better to stand up that has a resume of goodness, a history of service, of results, of passion and compassion? Certainly not Joe Moss. Look at my record. I am the most able. The mayor of Hudsonville is taking on Joe Moss for the right reasons. We need to move our county on to goodness. This pettiness, this polarization, this wasteful spending, this wasted time needs to stop. We need to start to focus on advancing our county once again.
Shawn, it's almost as if Mark has teed up your own question. Is that the one there? I mean, he's kind of setting you up. Go ahead and fire your question away.
Well, I had a couple questions on if you're running for commissioner. What's your pros and cons of being a commissioner compared to being a mayor?
We get to be a big deal if people call you Mr. Mayor. Hello. Yeah. That's got a nice ring to it, doesn't it, Shawn? Huh?
I don't know. You're going for commissioner and not mayor anymore.
Wouldn't it rather be a commissioner? You think that's maybe a step down? Actually, in some ways it is.
Is it?
Well, certainly, in some ways. However, there's more of a need at the county. My city's well run. Great staff, great commissioners. Get along. We focus on doing the goodness. If I have that skill to take to the county commission, I'm obligated to be there, Shawn. I can't sit in the sidelines and watch this train wreck. I have to be part of the fix. I got to be in that locomotive.
Get that? Now, you're talking about earlier on your statements, you're talking daycare and everything. What would you be looking at doing to help make more affordable daycare?
Okay, so one of the things in Hudsonville we've been working
father of twins, I get that.
It's a real pertinent issue.
Hear me out. One of my commissioners, Dave Nitre, is on the on the Outdoor Discovery Center board. He's the director. And one day I had a conversation and said, why couldn't ODC do something like that in Hudsonville? Next day he calls me and says, we have $1.5 million in ARPA funding to launch a satellite, and we're looking at Hudsonville. So we hope we have the initial plans to open a daycare center in our nature center. Now, nature centers is the ideal place for the Outdoor Discovery Center to have their daycares, because we want our children raised away from all the electronics. We want them outside. We want them breathing fresh air. We want them hiking, and we have the ideal place in Hudsonville in our nature center. So the ODC is going to be partnering with the city, we expect, within the next 6 months, and we will be building our own daycare center. Obviously, we'll be working with local industries to help them fund the building itself and some of the maintenance of it. Royal Technologies, Sound Off Signal, West Michigan Beef. All of these employers need to retain their employees, and they need to attract new ones. And one of the biggest limiting factors for our employees is daycare for families. We need to embrace families. We need to make it available to them. Now, I have some people say, well, mothers should always raise kids, and we have no obligation to help raise children. Well, you know what? That's maybe in an ideal world, but most new families are two income, or maybe they're one income, and a mom is trying to just work through and make a decent wage in a manufacturing factory. She has to have some daycare. You take her out of the workforce, then they go on welfare, they become more of a burden. We need these people in the workforce. We need to support them in the workforce. We need to have daycare systems available. But we talk about this all the time, but nobody does any action about it. Hudsonville's going to do action. We need to own this, Shawn. We need to support you and your twins. So your wife can maybe have a part-time job. And you can maybe pay the mortgage off early. Wouldn't that be nice, Shawn?
Well, that'd be very nice. She's more the breadwinner in the house, though, so.
Sounds like Mark is willing to help you out. But you know what? You know, full disclosure for both Shawn and I, we don't live in Ottawa County. As we discussed earlier, I live right on the border, and that border is just over the highway, so I live in Granville. So when you mentioned, like, Nick, you live across the border, you said it in jest, but I have been told that I live over the border in a very kind of partisan way. You know, like, I'm coming across, I'm interfering with politics and mingling.
Come on, we got to be bigger than that. Come on, we have to be bigger than that.
I was like, I live in Michigan, don't I? I come through Holland, I come through Hudsonville, all that other stuff. So, but Shawn, you live in Kentwood.
Yeah, and that's definitely on the other side of the border.
You're way across the border. You're like a deep south or like a deep west, east.
Yeah.
Yes, he says.
So Mark, I'm not as good as words as you are.
Mark, we got about 2 more minutes yet. So you are running, just to be clear, District 5 in the primary.
Yeah, that's
August 6th.
And as you said, that's where the race is, where we live. We need people to get out and vote August 7th in the primary. We need people to be engaged. By the way, there are several Republicans that are saying that I'm asking for Democrats to cross over. That is the furthest from the truth. In fact, Larry, you're here right now. We had that discussion. I do not want Democrats to cross over to vote in the Republican primary. You vote your own primary. My team votes my primary. Period. And for some people just immediately assume, since I had lunch with him, I'm asking his people to cross over. Furthest from the truth. They have their rights to their own facts, but not their own lies.
Well, hey, so you bring up something interesting, and I don't want to go too long into this because we gotta keep the segment shorter. But you know, you being here today is it might possibly seen as a bad thing in the county, right? Because you are talking to the perception in the county is that we are Vote Common Good West Michigan is more of a progressive leaning place. So what are your thoughts on that? A little bit more about talking.
I am just as able to speak to any conservative group, any church group, any liberal group, because my values will speak the truth as best they can. And you know what? If people are that narrow-minded, I don't think I want their vote. I'll be honest with you. Those are not the people that need to vote for me.
There it is.
I would ask them, do they have family that are Democrats? Do they have friends that are Democrats? Democrats and liberals, progressives, whatever you want to call them, or maybe we can call them Christian nationalists for all we care. We all have them in our family, and they're our friends, and we love them, but that doesn't mean we shut them off. How narrow-minded can you be? You need to be able to speak articulately and go there. That's the other thing about Joe Moss. Where is he? Is he here? No, he isn't here. You know why? Because he can't speak to anything successful or an accomplishment other than being mean-spirited.
If he wanted to talk to us, we'd talk to him for sure.
Well, bring him on. I'd be more than glad.
Yeah. Well, Joe Moss, you are invited to an event upcoming. I'll send you an
absolutely.
email. I'm sure you're listening to this podcast.
We'll host a little,
But
we'll host a little debate. That'd be kind of fun.
In all seriousness, anybody from Ottawa Impact, I'd love to hear their take on things and hear it from them.
I've said it to you many times because I would not necessarily say I am Vote Common Good like you are, because the whole point of me kind of being on everything is I kind of hopefully represent a little bit of that jaded center of the voters that doesn't quite know what is true or false to listen to one way or the other. And that's kind of where I try to stand at, is I wouldn't say I'm Republican or Democrat. I just kind of go with what sounds good to me at the time, I guess, which might not sound good. But if he wants to come out, I find that fun, because then we get a little bit more of both sides, just like having you on tonight. it doesn't do us as a podcast very good, I don't think, if we're always going one side of the narrative. So getting both sides of the aisle, I think, is a thing that everybody needs to get the most of, but the honest sides of the aisles.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think what, Mark, you're talking about and what we strive to do is, like, we want to talk to people.
Yeah.
That's our demographic. We want to talk to people of faith and goodwill who want to seek to do better in their communities. So that's what we're working to do. And so, Mark, we thank you for being here. Thank you for being with us. And have a safe trip down the stairs.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a spotlight where you can get them on. Yeah, let's give Mark a round of applause. Thanks for being here. All right, next segment, we're going to move into our common good conversation. So this will be a bit of a longer conversation. I think we'll go to about a half hour, 45 minutes. But we're going to invite Chris Kleinians up to the stage here. Let me find where I am at my notes here.
How we doing, Chris?
Well, how are you?
Doing good. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being up here. So Chris Kleinians was selected to run as the Democratic candidate in the District 2 County Commissioner recall election scheduled to take place on May 7. Chris has a 25-year history of working in the nonprofit sector, including in his current position as a community nutrition instructor. Let's see here. You're also on the advisory board of Ottawa Food. You're a member of the American Legion and VFW. Chris, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks.
You know, let's talk about that little piece right here. And this was something that Mark could talk about a little bit too when he comes back up. But so Mark served in the Coast Guard for a number of years. So talk about your connection with the American Legion and the VFW.
Sure. I come from a long line of service, going back to Spanish-American War, I think. So finding myself a little out of sorts after high school, I followed the path that my dad had followed, which was he made a career out of it. I went in for 4 years, served overseas, did 3 tours, one of which was during the first Gulf War, and I was part of the big exodus of people after that, at which point I kind of came back to Holland and started another chapter of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you for your service, and thanks to Mark as well. I also, and this I don't know if this is sounding self-congratulatory now at this point, but I served 10 years in the United States Air Force, 4 years on active duty, took a year off, then did 6 years in the Air National Guard, working with security forces.
Thank you for your service as well.
Oh, you're very welcome, Shawn. So let's talk about this. So you are on the advisory board of Ottawa Food, and so there's a big point of contention here about Ottawa Food and between the Board of Commissioners, the Ottawa Impact Commissioners. So there was a recent article from the Holland Sentinel that had this headline. It said, "Unfortunate how it's devolved. Ottawa Food sparks tense debate between board and the health officials," and that was of March 19, just a few days ago. And I'm going to read just a few excerpts here. I won't bore everybody, but there are just some real pieces here that I want to set up that will help to move this conversation along. So, quote, nope, I scratched that out.
Well done.
Let's go here to the part that I got. Quote, "The lack of a coordinator for Ottawa Food has been a recurring problem since dramatic funding cuts were made last year. The Ottawa County Department of Public Health's Nutrition and Health Education line item, referring to its budget, was cut by 48%, which officials from that department warned wouldn't leave enough to fund the position. And then, as expected in November, Ottawa Food's countywide nonprofit partners voted to pause services because of a lack of funding. And then the staff since that time have since requested restored funding to reinstate the position so the programming can resume." And this is the final piece here. So Joe Moss, in the article from 14 November, said, quote, "The board is not defunding Ottawa Food. I'll just say on the record, I would not like the health department to cut this program. I don't think anyone does. I would venture that no one in the room would want this cut. Finally, and this is from John Gibbs, the former county administrator, says, the Ottawa County Department of Public Health is fully capable of funding its portion of the Ottawa Food Collaborative. It is instead, speaking about the Ottawa Food, they are instead sadly choosing to engage in theatrics by attempting to needlessly cut high-profile programs in order to score political points. So, Chris, the Ottawa Food is without a coordinator, and with you being, in this, what's going on here? What is the point of contention that Ottawa Impact has a big disagreement with?
So, before I answer, I want to point out that I am currently on a leave of absence from the board, which was effective pretty much from the day that I filed to run in this election, because it would have been not a conflict, but it would have just made that situation more complicated. So, I have taken a step back from those board duties for a while, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to the board. But up to that point, I can kind of speak to this situation. So where the difficulty comes is it is a fact that the health education budget was cut. There are a number of other positions in that budget line besides the Ottawa Food Coordinator. Where it gets weird is that the Ottawa Food Coordinator is a unique position that is not found really in any Department of Public Health throughout the state, and that is because it was created organically within the county based on a need. Now, this is also something I've seen sitting on the board of community mental health, is that when you're talking about county boards that receive federal funding, that comes with very strict parameters in which it has to be used. So health education is a mandate from the state and from the federal government. Certain health education mandates need to be handled by the health department. When you look at that metric, there is no position for a food coordinator because we're the only ones that have a food coordinator. So when that budget cut was made, prioritization had to go to the things that are mandated by the state and the federal government. And it goes by, you fund the things you are mandated to fund. There is no mandate to fund the Ottawa Food Coordinator because it is unique to our county. So where that got, even, and then it gets into the fact, then as far as municipal employment is based on seniority. So in a situation where there is a pretty steep budget cut, when it comes to looking at who stays and who goes, it goes by who's been in place longer, and the food coordinator position Sierra hadn't been there, I think it was her second or third year. So she was the junior person. So by the way the municipal hiring system works, her employment was untenable. Now, she was moved into environmental health because there was a slot there and there was funding there. But the notion that that it was the health department being vindictive to the board does not line up with the parameters by which this organization has to operate under, which preclude legally the board saying, we really wish you wouldn't do that.
Okay, so at the end of the day, the coordinator is not a mandated position.
Not according to, it's not mandated by the state or the federal government who provides funding to the county for health education.
Who then, if there's why does, maybe I'm going too much in the weeds here and you can tell me. So why does there need to be a coordinator if other counties in Michigan don't have one?
So Ottawa Food started out its existence as the Ottawa County Food Policy Council, and many counties have a food policy council. And this is a large table full of everybody that works with food insecurity in the county to try and address those issues. If you've ever worked with a large group of nonprofits, as I have for most of my working career, it is essentially like herding cats. They run this way, they run that way. every organization that comes to the table has its own mission, and they are primarily devoted to that mission. Part of that mission is serving on this committee. So what happened was, after sort of observing this for a while, the health department was like, we have a little grant funding to maybe help bring someone in that could maybe help herd the cats, whose only job was to herd the cats, because in a normal food policy council, the board is chosen from the nonprofits. And so you get traction, you get results, but you just don't get, a really good, you get forward momentum, but maybe not as much as you could. And so the problem is addressed, but maybe not as well as it could. So with this grant, they funded, they decided they were able to give this a try. And it worked really well, because when you have someone whose whole job it is to look at the mission, and, for example, grab some of these 40-plus organizations to do different things, because that's their specialty. It serves their mission and the mission of the organization. So, for example, with health education pieces or nutrition education pieces, that's essentially where I slide in. Because if they're working, if they have either a grant or they have someone in the community come to them with a need, and it involves nutrition education, I would get a call. Do you have time to do this? And we try and work it out and come alongside them. So, for example, with Senior Project Fresh, Senior Project Fresh has a lot of moving parts. There's an incredible amount of pre-work that goes into making sure those books are delivered out. With that comes a health education component, a nutrition education component. If the health department's setting up, making sure all the paperwork's done, the books come from the state, everything, all the coordination with the apartment supervisors and all of that other stuff, if they can call me in to do the nutrition education piece and take that off their hands, that helps my mission and it helps them achieve their mission. Same thing with if we're looking at trying to increase food distribution to maybe the northeast section of the county, where there's not as many pantries as, say, along the west side of the county. Having those resources and knowing everyone around the table means you can pick who you need to talk to when you need to talk to them for the problems that you see coming up. Because again, a nonprofit is going to be in their lane for their mission. So the coordinator position just helps make it go better. It increases capacity, it increases forward momentum, it increases return on investment, because you have someone who is above everything, kind of looking down and making sure that all of us do the things that we do the best and aren't pulled into doing things that aren't necessarily our strong suit.
Like a food manager a little bit.
Essentially.
Yeah. I'm going to ask 3 questions in a row, Shawn, and then I'll let you speak. I promise.
I don't need to speak.
Then you have to ask 3 questions in a row.
Who, what, where, why?
3 in a row. Because this is the final one that Chris, you brought up here. I'm wondering, what is the evidence for having Ottawa Food? Is there like metrics and data where the board can say, like, hey, we need this program because it's doing A, B, and C in the county. Like, let's keep it going. Let's get a coordinator in there because it's giving all of these services to the community that the community wants. Are there those metrics?
Yeah, the annual report just came out last week, and it was another highly successful year. With Ottawa Food helping with Community Action House's food rescue program, assisting with that and the distribution of over, I think they're up to 2 million pounds of food, but that wasn't all last year. In addition, we received grants last year to do a lot of purchasing from farmers, which we then redistributed to food pantries, because again, part of the mission is everyone, when they think Ottawa Food, they think food insecurity, and that's very true. It's a huge part of what we do, but it's also to support farmers, and it's also to increase nutrition awareness countywide, because we could all maybe do a little better with the eating thing. But as far as the rollout and retention for Senior Project Fresh vouchers was improved again this year. It's not quite where we would have liked it to be. But purchases from and then the gleaning at the farmers markets distributed. I want to say several tons of food. That expanded to another couple of farmers markets, which was good because those gleaning opportunities that started at Holland and Grand Haven, those gleaning opportunities at the farmers markets went to the Holland and Grand Haven ones. We were able to move one over into Hudsonville, which again is what we were trying to do, was move them out to farmers markets and sort of increase that capacity so that fresh produce would go right into that region, right into that area's food pantries, and increase the nutritional value that their clients were getting. So those programs all improved. We were looking at kind of like building those out. And then, we had let go of a couple of programs that had become self-sustaining and they didn't require our oversight anymore, which was nice. But it was a very good year as far as like resourcing food throughout the county. Smaller programs from the nutrition education point were. We had purchased a portable kitchen, and we're moving that through the OCSN Ottawa County School Network, resource people in the schools to have them teach nutrition in the classroom, utilizing hands-on cooking. This kitchen it's awesome. It's about the size of this table. It can go anywhere. Oven, stove, induction cooktop. It's awesome. And so we trained them on that, and so that I know it just came back from Coopersville a couple of weeks ago. So it was a good year.
Because I'm drinking.
This?
I'm like, go. Three questions.
Do this.
Three questions.
3 questions. There's so much there. It's hard for me to actually get a question wrapped around it because there's a lot there, a lot of answers actually.
Yeah.
He's actually answering questions before I have a chance to actually do it, so which is okay.
Answering his own questions. Let's move into the MLive poll.
Were you handling that? Because it says you right here.
I know. Yeah. But we can improvise. Let's improvise. Go ahead.
So it shows that there's 47.7% of Ottawa County says that the county's on the right track, and 34 say it's on the wrong track. If that's the case, why do you feel like you need to run against it if everyone's saying it's already good?
It's a really good point. One of the things that we've been the fastest growing county in the state of Michigan for a number of years. And part of what comes along with that is the notion that, maybe it will always be that way. There becomes, we have beautiful lake, awesome park system, a continuing, industry coming in, industry doing, expanding, building. There comes there can be this sense of inevitability. This is the way it's always been, and this is the way it's always going to be. And that's not necessarily the case. And, things tip. They don't change radically, instantaneously, but things tip over time. And the first thing I noticed, really, starting from the January 3, 2023 meeting, was that this might be a tip. During the recall effort, in the second district, we never disputed the idea that the Board of Commissioners had every right to do what they did, but rather we had every right to question the manner in which they did it. And it was the manner in which they've been conducting themselves, and in particular, the commissioner from the second district, that made me believe that continued non-obeyment of established norms of governance would not help us maintain this thing that took a lot of work and a lot of effort to create, which is a county that was being run well and moving in a positive direction. And it would be easy to stand back and wait and just kind of go, okay, well let's just see what happens, or it's harder to inject yourself into the process and say, the outcomes don't look well. And perhaps we can stop the hurt that might be coming if we address it before it becomes too deep.
You say the hurt that might be coming. In what way do you say the hurt might be coming?
So, some of the things that have come up, essentially we can start with fiscal. The fiscal management has been interesting. And again, I agree, the tax base is strong, And the books, when you look at the books, that the books look well, but there is the question of what could have been done with the money that was spent on legal fees, for example.
Build the roads. Mark,
build the damn roads.
What could be done, for example, with the severance packages that have been paid out? What could be done with what will inevitably be the legal fees and potential judgments against the lawsuits that are still pending? We know what the dollar amount has been so far, but there is also a questionable amount that is still we'll have to wait and find out. Those create, they just make a look of uncertainty. And again, if this was all happening in a vacuum, it wouldn't matter. Unfortunately, I do know for a fact, because I hang around Fillmore a little bit, is that outside counties are poaching our talent, and have poached a lot of our talent, which has resulted in our institutional memory and of the things that made us that county is sort of going away. So we're losing sort of some of the larger pieces that created this outstanding bureaucracy that helped us create this outstanding county. And those are things that can't be, you can't go out and shop a facilities manager who's got 20 years of experience. You can't go out and shop assistant administrators and administrators that have 20 years experience. It's tough. It's a tough market, and it's going to cost money. And so these things create an air of uncertainty. And if there's one thing I know about business, and I don't know a lot because I'm in nonprofits, is that business hates uncertainty.
Yeah.
With a passion.
I
want to speak to a little bit of this uncertainty, but I want to round out this poll information as well. So, Shawn, as you noted, there's 47% that say Ottawa County is on the right track, but when it's broken down by party affiliation, there are sharp differences, and then sharp differences by region. So, for example, somebody who considers themselves a strong Democrat, as yourself, Chris, 55% say that the county is on the wrong track. Even those who lean Democratic say that they're on the wrong track, with about 48.9%. But then those in the middle, those independent voters, they also say that they're on the wrong track at 48%. And then now here's the shift in terms of partisan affiliation. A strong Republican, I'll use Mark as an example, is at 58.5%, where they say that they're on the right track. And then those who lean Republican are at 60%. So those are just kind of the larger framework for that poll. And I'll give a little data here too. So it's like, I can hear some of these questions in my head. Well, okay, why is there a poll about Ottawa Impact, and why are these questions out there about how voters feel about Ottawa Impact? And then I can hear that, well, it's whatever you want to say, it's fake news, it's a witch hunt, it's media bias. So I just want to put it out here. The editor for MLive, maybe he saw this coming. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him, but he said MLive has never commissioned a poll. For more than a year, Michigan's fastest growing county, however, has been deeply divided by political changes instigated by an ultra-conservative group that swept into power under the banner of Ottawa Impact. Conflict is everywhere, from protests and shouting to accusations and lawsuits. What do most citizens really think about what is happening politically in their home county? And then finally, I think this is what you and I were talking about, Shawn, and partly what we hope to bring to the podcast, is that the average county resident has to get dinner on the table, get their kids to soccer, or in my case, soccer and karate. They just don't have the time. We wanted to get a sense of what those folks who are not hearing from think. And then I'm going to say it again. Finally, It's an election year, and West Michigan is key to knowing how the state will vote. This gives us an inkling of how folks are feeling and serves as a directional guide for important journalism that we plan to do all year long in Ottawa County and across Michigan. So the poll, that's when we talk about what are people thinking, how are they going to vote, why, when we talk to candidates and bring them up here, we can get your perspective, but we also want to hear that perspective, like from when you go out and canvass, or from when Mark goes out to canvass. So where's my sheet here?
I think you're wondering what he's seen from voters while he's out there on the trail.
Did you just ask your second question?
I did. I did.
Why don't we go with
that? I picked up your slack for a change instead of the other way around. Nice. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And you two are amazing. All right. Yes. I also like that. A note about that. It's like when you dig deeper into the narrative from the editor, it also says that a disproportionate. How do they phrase it? A disproportionate number of Republican voters simply could not offer an opinion, which I think is kind of telling, but it does match up with what we've seen canvassing since we were able to get out and when the weather is kinder. So what we've been seeing is that, you're exactly right. The second district is a multi-ethnic, hardworking district, and there are a lot of people that have a lot going on. And county politics has been pointed out over and over, has always been kind of like that thing that happens that no one really knows about. I mean, things get done and things get done. So it hasn't risen to a lot of people's attention because they have other things to do. I mean, it is a tough job living in this county. If you're if you're both working and you've got a mortgage and you've got or you're looking for a house or you're dealing with the things and you've got small kids. That's the second district. It's a young district. There's a lot of people on the grind. So we do see that a lot of people that do not really, they haven't been keeping up on what's been going on. And I'm not going to fault anybody for that. It's, you're living life. When my boys were small, and you've got karate and all that stuff. It doesn't become a priority. And I understand that. So primarily what we've been trying to do is voter education and outreach as to what's been going on, and encouraging everybody to go do their own looking. We're not
listen to podcasts.
Yeah, listen to podcasts. Go out and find resources to kind of help fill in what you might want to know, because we do. It is very important. This election is very important.
Oh, okay. Me again. All right. So while speaking of taking your kids to karate and soccer, fun note, I'm testing for my red belt next week.
You are?
I'm on a white belt. I just started karate, man, like a couple months ago. Did you know this?
I did not know that.
Okay.
I did not know that.
Let me take
How come we didn't cover this at the beginning?
Let me take a small aside.
You wanted to talk about nasal cavities instead.
I know. I should be talking about testing for my red belt. So that is happening this coming week. Wyatt, my 7-year-old son, is going to be testing with me as well. So we do it at his school. So his school is just across the way from my house, and so whenever I would go to school prior to this, I would see all these kids walk into the school with their gi, their uniform.
I'm sorry. All I picture is that Seinfeld episode where Kramer was training karate with all the kids, and they jumped him in the side aisle because he was kicking their butts.
Yeah, and also on The Office where Dwight, he goes into the dojo and he does karate with the kids. I do the karate with the kids.
Sure.
I do. It's an all ages class.
I see the ego right now. I'm getting my red belt.
You should see me just wail on those kids. I'm really good. They can't even do anything with me.
I'm sure you got the reach on them.
I do. I've just got a whole bunch of athleticism, and I tell them when they're down, just stay down. Just stay down. There's also an older gentleman, a lot older, and I also tell him, just stay down. You don't feel my wrath, because I'm about to test for my red belt.
Is it because he's so old he just has trouble getting up? He's going to hurt himself if he gets up? Just lay there.
Serious geriatrics here. Yeah. All right.
Press your life alert if you need to get up.
He's good though. He has a higher belt than me. He's been training.
So you're cocky to someone who's better than you.
I am.
That's
so
not smart at all. You're not going to get that red belt now.
I need to show more respect there. All right.
Talk about going in the weeds.
Yeah, you talk about karate and how it
you
relates
talk about
to,
karate. I didn't talk
kids
about
being
karate.
Active. So back to the poll. All right, here's this. The job approval of Ottawa Impact, according to voters, is underwater by nearly a 2-to-1 margin. So voters were asked if they approve or disapprove of the job being done by members of Ottawa Impact. 20% approve of the job they are doing.
36, you hold that out here for you?
Yeah,
I thought you had your glasses.
36% disapprove of the job. Now I really can't see. 13 neither approve or disapprove. 28% could not offer an opinion. But here's where I think they wanted to make clear, or the numbers kind of speak a little more loudly, is that 27% strongly disapprove. So when you're out educating voters and speaking to those parents and people who are really busy at karate, at soccer, like you only have a small window with them, right? So you gotta give them the business there. So what are you leading off with? Like what is resonating with people when you say like, well, people strongly disapprove of what they're doing because this?
Right. Typically I talk about the fiscal. Because money, it's dollars and cents, and dollars and cents does have a longitudinal impact over time. The board put out last week that that they had received a AAA bond rating. That's fine. 3 bond rating agencies give that rating. The one that we received recently, they primarily look at books. Others look at books and culture. And so if you have a bond rating agency, which should be according what I remember, they typically arrive around April. They'll look at the books, but they'll also look at the culture of the county, because that determines kind of like your degree of success going forward. Are things going smooth? Are there any surprises? Any weird stuff?
Can you define the culture of the economy?
The culture of the county.
Oh, the county.
Not the economy.
That changes
because
the whole
they
thing.
see that as having a direct impact on the culture of the economy. Yeah. So that could be, they could have a different perception of kind of how things are going because of the division that poll speaks to. So the fiscal piece doesn't stop. It will continue to go on, and so I talk about that. We talk about that primarily. Don't really lead into the social issues because people are free to. Again, it goes back to, we don't dispute that they have had the right to do the things that they have done, but the manner in which they have done them has cost us a lot of money and created a lot of bad blood. And those are the things that need to be addressed. The actions themselves, it is a positive or a negative depending on your persuasion, but the mechanics by which they've operated under have created a strain on the system that could have longitudinal impacts for the health of the economy going across another decade. These things don't undo themselves over time.
Like you can drive from point A to point B, just don't drive on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I think that's one way of putting it. Good point. I see you. Nice. I see you there. I see you working. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my brain working at top capacity right there.
Well, then my brain went to I think a Seinfeld episode. I think.
Oh, jeez, we're back there now.
Yeah. Do you have any follow-up questions? Because then we'll move on to the next segment.
Next segment, please.
Next segment it is. So this is an audience reminder. So audience members, if you have a question for either Chris or Mark when he comes back up, remember to get those to my lovely assistant in the back there. And then in about a few minutes, I'll have her bring those up here as well. All right, so So I'm really excited about this piece. This is a new piece to the podcast and the work with Vote Common Good West Michigan. Is for this year, we've created a platform so that we could have common good candidates. Now, we've had common good candidates in years previous where we supported the incumbent commissioners from the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners, a bunch of candidates for school board and things like that around Ottawa County and Kent County. All that is where we are really focused on state level candidates from, as small as like a library board position. I would use an example at Patmos Library, maybe in Jamestown, all the way up to a state senator or a state representative. So anything that's federal is left up to the parent organization, Vote Common Good. So I've brought all this together to say that we have a new platform, and Chris is our first candidate for 24 to represent that platform. So Chris is a common good candidate here in West Michigan, and I want to just give a brief overview of what this means. So there are a few things that a common good candidate has to commit to, and then there's a pledge that they pledge to as well. So the first thing is they commit to trustworthy leadership. And I'm just going to read this a bit here. So it says, I, as Chris or any candidate, says, I will earn public trust by embodying a deep sense of civic responsibility as a public servant. I will commit to the highest intellectual, moral, and civic standards essential for a well-functioning democracy. Next, responsible governance. I will practice accountability, teamwork, prudence, moderation, and justice. I'm going to keep moving on here. Genuine belonging. I will serve the needs of the entire community over self-interest and partisan interest alone. I commit to ethical conduct, which means I will discharge my responsibilities with integrity. Service before self. I will adhere to my oath of office and faithfully discharge the duties with professionalism, courage, and humility. And finally, which has been a staple for a common good candidate, is the Love in Politics pledge, which means that I will commit to an ethic of love in my public and political life that advocates for the common good of all. So that's our common good candidate platform. So Chris, I'd like to thank you for participating in that. And then to make clear for our audience here and for listeners is that we do not endorse Chris. This is an endorsement where Chris endorses the common good and this platform. So Chris, I'd love for you to share just some of your thoughts about this if you have any.
Sure. So this was relatively easy. As I mentioned, I've done essentially a lifetime of service in various capacities. My first was my service to my country, with the military, and I came back and I found an awesome, tolerant, patient woman, and we got married. Then I was serving my family because I was trying to raise two boys while going to school and working full time and trying to get my career in the nonprofit field going. And then my boys grew up like they do, and geez, then they left the house. But at that point, I was when my involvement with Ottawa Food as a member of Ottawa Food kind of deepened and enhanced, and I was asked to join that board, and then shortly after that, I joined. I applied and was appointed to a term on the Community Mental Health Board. Along with the civic work that I've done as a member of the Legion and the VFW, and so doing service has always been part of what that was my grandpa. I mean, he came back from the Second World War and he helped start the Holland Fish and Game Club, the Pigeon Club out in Zeeland, the VFW in Holland. I mean, the Ruby Creek Fish and Game Club. I mean, he was let's do things. He was a let's do things guy, and I kind of must have gotten a little bit of that from him. 3-4 years ago, I was given the incredible gift of going through the Emerging Leaders Program from an organization called the Great Lakes Leadership Academy. It's a year-long program that works on leadership development, and the entire credo of that was leadership for the common good. And that galvanized the lens through which I saw just about everything that I wanted to do. Was the common good and how the common good is defined by each of us, and that really had a profound effect on me and made me to really want to do more than what I had been doing. And when this started happening, not even in January. I mean, because if you were looking, you could kind of see how things were going to go, even in the summer of 22. I mean, this shouldn't have been a surprise to anybody. What was I going to do to address this? I have had no aspirations for political office, and as I've told more than a few people whose doors I've knocked on, this is about as high as I'd like to go. I'd like to go back to just sort of doing a lot of running and working at my job and kind of, the
way you are running.
Yeah, oh yeah, there you go. I gotcha. The other running is I prefer. But what I do want to do is I want to help my community get back to true. And what I mean by true is I don't mean true. I mean we're a little off balance. True is level. Level is equal. Level is representational. Level is equity. Level are those things. My undergrad's in history, and I worked at the museum across the street from here for about 7 years. And so knowing the area's history, which has been part of my history for over 150 years when my family arrived to help settle Zealand, has been something that I've always been super passionate about. And I understand a lot. And there are a lot of conceptions about those Dutch people, and a lot of stereotypes about those Dutch people. But one thing I do know about this county and this area is that very few people got here on a winning streak by some sort of magic. This became a place where you could come and find your success, whatever it was, however you defined it. No one had to define it for you. And successive waves of people have come here looking for that, and they have found a space here. And it is important for our county government to continue to do the good work so that everybody who wants to come here to find their dream or their story can have as much access to it as we can give them, as much with as equal a level playing field as we can. That's the essence of governance for the common good, and because it does the best for the most. And that's why I was brought into this. And it was the opportunity to do something that I feel very strongly we might have a harder time regaining if we don't work at it now, right now, this day now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate you being a common good candidate, and I look forward to hearing from other candidates that want to commit to this program. If you are interested in that, you can find more details at the website Vote Common Good West Michigan, or you can email me or talk to me after today's program. So there's two things before. So Mark's going to come back up pretty soon here. If there are any questions that are wanting to be asked, I'd have. Is there anything? Yeah. Okay. Here. Yeah. Why don't you send those up?
I can go grab them from her.
She's gonna walk all the way back from the way back. So here's the thing too. So Chris, you talked about kind of this Dutch culture. So this is something that Shawn and I have talked about before. Is when you need to put on your thinking cap here. When you go to a chain supermarket store to get your groceries, to get some clothes items, maybe to get some plants, things of that nature. There's a store here that has kind of what is it, like red or orange lettering across the front. Now, I am interested in how you pronounce that store name. So when you go to this place,
it took me a second, but I got there.
When you go to this store, where are you going? You are going to
Meijer.
Meijer. Hey, we got a Meijer.
Meijers.
We got a Meijer. Because Shawn, you say what?
Meijer's.
Meijer's. Now, Is there an apostrophe S on
It is Meijers. The store is a Meijers store.
It is a... No, it's not. It is a Meijer store.
You set me up.
We've already talked about this.
I know.
I can tell this is
I don't know why you gotta
hotly
kick it
debated thing. It's. I'm glad that Chris pronounced.
Is anybody else going to back me up here?
Do
I got
we
one
have a
hand.
poll?
I got two hands. There you
Yeah.
go. See, I'm not alone in this.
See, I know this.
Way to single me out.
Runs deep. This runs deep. Talk about political polarization.
I'm still confused why there's a J in there, and I don't hear that J anywhere.
Oh,
and
you don't want to get into that.
You're talking about a letter that you don't hear and a letter you don't see.
It's there.
The S isn't there.
I'm sorry. The S.
Because there's no. Never mind.
All right.
No one is talking
Mark,
to you.
Come on up here. I'm gonna move Chris over a little bit. I'm gonna get another chair.
You're the guest. Sit down. Yeah, they're right in front of you. Open your eyes. You got your glasses on. They're as thick as bottle caps.
I'm getting old, but not that old.
I took a bunch of notes.
Oh no!
You came prepared.
You
came prepared.
I was listening to Chris.
All right. So how this is going to work? We've
go.
got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 audience questions. So we have one microphone between you two. So I'll just leave it up to you. Whoever wants to lead off with the question can. Here we go. Question number 1.
What are you, a game show in this thing?
Yeah, I'm really starting to feel it. Boom. Do you think parents should... Okay, let me preface. I don't know what is coming with these questions, so bear with me. Okay. Do you think parents should or should not be informed? Abortion or transgender decisions or their minor children? Okay. Do you think parents should or should not be informed? I think when it comes to abortion and transgender issues, decisions that would affect minor children.
I think they're referencing it should they be informed by their children if they feel one way or the other. I think.
Do you think parents should or should not be informed?
I think like school officials or health officials.
Yeah,
that's my reading. That's the narrative in the national news. Of course, a parent is responsible for their child. They are tasked to raise their child. And unless it's a dysfunctional family, and I would assume there is some court operation there, that would be an exception. But the rule should be the parent is the parent is the parent. They're the guardian. Period. No exception from my viewpoint. Chris?
So I do believe that parents have a right to know what their child's up to. That goes without saying. I don't believe per se that unless a child feels a clear and present danger at their home, which is another matter to address entirely, that information should be.
That's an exception.
True. Oh, exactly. No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying that's why I'm saying that's not the norm. But I also know that this is an issue that, because we are blessed with local control of our school boards, that does not have a national policy, nor does it have a statewide policy, I believe. But I also know, and I know very definitely, that this sure is a county policy. And because I have been asked questions along this nature, knocking on doors, my focus and my opinions on a lot of things relate to how that would affect me as a commissioner. To the best of my knowledge, we as a commission do not set this policy. So my opinion on it doesn't matter.
Stay away from it. It's not in our road.
Exactly.
All right, next question. You have some more? Okay. What is your take on the COVID vaccines and the and the many injurious effects of vaccines. Okay, what is your take on the COVID vaccine and the many injurious effects of vaccines?
Well, I think we all were suspect. The masking, the being inoculated. I think many of us were suspect. It just didn't make sense for a healthy person to go through all this. And the masking just scientifically just didn't make sense to a lot of us. So there's some narrative out there that forced it on us, that created this expectation. I don't know if it was pharmaceuticals. I don't know whether it was the controlling interest of their government. I don't know. But looking back on it, I think we were all a little bit ashamed of ourselves for being so gullible. A lot of us said, this just doesn't make sense. And now we're dealing with the aftermath of people with heart problems and other issues from the vaccines. You know, if I'd been a young woman, I wouldn't have gotten the vaccine, or a healthy young man. It was those with comorbidity issues, 4 comorbidities. Obesity, kidney problems, diabetes. Those were the ones that were at risk, not you and me that are healthy adults, and certainly not the young children in schools. And yet we were forced this vaccine mandate on us. And a lot of us just said, it just doesn't pass the stink test. And now we're dealing with the aftermath. Thank you very much.
So, all right, happily got vaccinated, happily got all my boosters up to date, just the same way I get a flu shot every year. And anything that comes up as I get older that is recommended. Vaccines work. Every metric going forward, and longitudinal studies have shown that it works. Within every population, within every cohort, there are going to be individuals for whom the vaccine does not work, or there are adverse effects. That is a statistical fact. During COVID, when I was inside a lot, I spent a lot of time reading up about the influenza epidemic of 1919. And as this rolled out, I was stunned, absolutely stunned by the fact that the same arguments I was hearing today were the exact same arguments they made in 1919, when we were in the midst of another pandemic that killed roughly twice as many people. These are the human reactions to an unfathomable thing that we have very little control over. But my belief is that as science changes, but as the research keeps moving forward, it will show that the creation of the herd immunity was an undeniable fact of the ability for our society to go back to the level of function it has today and minimize the effects of the virus in new cases.
Next question.
What about you?
Oh, I'm not a candidate. I'm not a candidate up here.
Did the card say just candidate?
No. But there are just for the candidates. I mean, we might have our own. I know that we have our own opinions on this, but this segment is really just to hear from the candidates here. We can do some takeaways afterwards, perhaps. Question: have you talked to any young voters? This guy is ready to go. Have you talked to any young voters about the loss of the county DEI program? If so, what did you learn? If not, will you talk to those folks?
DDI?
DEI, the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, that was abolished by Ottawa Impact.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm the Republican conservative up here. I'll be honest with you, DEI is divisive. It pits us against each other. We've been doing this for the last 100 years, and the DEI is feeding that narrative constantly. Okay, now having said that, the county did away with the DEI office. I'm supportive of that. Having said that, before we did away with it, we should have made some effort to find out what is there that needs to be retained that could bring value to us. What is there that could be retained that could build our economy and help people, that's not divisive and polarizing. So I don't know. I mean, the DEI is gone in the county. Could there have been something there that could have been retained, that could have been for goodness, that could have helped bring more employees into our community, that could have saved people from maybe suicide? I don't know, because we didn't do the research. They just cut it, made it go away, rather than saying, what is here that could be retained that could help the community?
So it's always important to note that that the DEI office was created by a Republican majority Board of Commissioners at the request of industry, who wanted that asset to recruit talent to the area that they thought would be necessary to continue our area's growth. So there's that piece. Young people that I have talked to, if they know about it, they're generally upset. I was out in at West Ottawa North Building yesterday because they had Wostock, which is a concert put on by school organization CTEE. Good thing, young bands, awesome music, and the school is, and my youngest son graduated from West Ottawa 7 years ago. And this school is both in makeup and distribution of people, much different from even in that 7 years. We're a changing culture. Anything that helps make that easier I see as a positive. Now, where I personally had issues with the DEI, with the elimination of the department, is the narrow-mindedness behind the why. The narrow-mindedness behind the definition of DEI that was used as the fulcrum for its dissolution. And when I say that, I mean, because it is diversity and equity and inclusion, but immediately the default is we're talking about race, we're talking about people. So I spend the majority of my time working with intellectually disabled adults who are transitioning to independence. DEI is for them because they face ableism and a whole host of other issues as they try and become successful and productive members of our society. DEI exists for them. It exists for anybody who is marginalized or has been marginalized or faces the possibility of marginalized. By the elimination of that department, which was a resolution introduced by the commissioner I'm running against, they took the opportunity, they took a voice away from an entire bunch of really cool people that I get to work with that ought to have every opportunity that any other human being gets in this county. Those are the things that upset me, because it was used as the way it was painted. As a matter of fact, I believe it was from the statement, the assistant chair said that it was an instrument of Marxist liberalism. So it's Marxist liberalism for me to want to have a resource where employers can go to find out, how do I, if I want to hire these people, how can I make that easier for these people to come and work for me so that they can have a good life?
For the record, I've raised 2 children developmentally challenged that are adults now, and they were the benefactors of some of those programs. I don't know whether or not those were DEI programs or not, but here again, it was how it was packaged as evil and divisive. So here again, before you throw the baby out with the bathwater, we need to ask people. We need to go to industry and ask people. We need to ask professionals like you, what is here that is still a benefit that's not divisive? We didn't do the county didn't do that. They just threw it all away.
All right, here's the next question. I got 2 questions. These are bonus questions for you, Mark. Number one, you have a green wristband on your right arm. Where did you go? Craig's Cruisers or Great Wolf Lodge, a water park? Where were you last night?
They stopped me at the door and gave me one.
You got one at the door?
I don't know. I asked why. Is that my?
I think that was the VIP.
That was my alcohol. I'm 21.
All right. I didn't see that. All right. Second question.
Did he get carded?
Second question. This was already asked of Chris. So when you go to a specific store here in town, how do you pronounce that store's name?
Don't forget this.
Meijer.
Damn.
I'm really raking it in here.
Adjust my votes later.
All right, this question is up for anybody. We'll do two more questions here. Two more questions. If Adeline Hambley, the Ottawa County Health Director, filed the lawsuit, the one against the Board of Commissioners, why should OI be blamed for the time and money she obligated the board? I think the question is, if she filed the lawsuit, why should the county perhaps and their council pay the fees, the legal fees?
It was a personal vendetta by Joe Moss and Ottawa Impact to go after her. The county is liable. Bottom line. I mean, there could be even an intelligent conversation. What did we learn out of this? She's a professional. I have to have some faith and trust in her as a professional, but it was purely vindictive. There's no other way to describe it. And God bless her for standing up to the county and saying, this is wrong. Now, do I agree that she made all the best decisions during COVID? Probably not. But that doesn't justify being vindictive. It means we're professionals and we learn from it, move forward. Chris.
Sure. So the reason that the county is liable to pay for the legal fees is because that's the agreement they made to settle the suit and get the case dismissed. So that was their agreement. Yeah, it's a contractual agreement to get out of the suit. However, going back to the initial, the origin of it, you can be, skepticism is a fine thing. And it is good to be skeptical and to ask questions. If there was not cause, this would not have advanced to the point that it did. But it was determined that there was cause. At every point, this could have been, at every point, the county's legal argued to stop it, but there was insufficient, Now you can say, well, the game was rigged, but that's not skepticism, that's just denial. But the reason that we will be paying Sarah Howard's fees is because that's what the board agreed to. And it is worth noting that, for whatever reason, they opted to demote, they opted to create that environment at the health department. Health Administrator Stefanovsky was the one who piloted the ship throughout COVID, and she had retired before that. Adeline was working in environmental health and had very little to do with the day-to-day operations working through the pandemic. So it was aggression. It was an arrow aimed. I'm not sure exactly why it was aimed at her, since she was not, directly making decisions at that time.
Final question. Can you speak to your stance on transparency? And there, reference, how do you feel about the closed sessions? But I would expand that a little bit too about just transparency in general. How can you speak to your stance on transparency?
Do I think technically the board's made violations? Probably not. But they have violated the intent by meeting secretly before they were sworn in. They violated the intent, which is just as damning as the technical violation, if there have been any. I am ashamed, appalled, embarrassed by their position that they were right to do so.
In one of my something that I've written about transparency on my website. is that transparency is an outward manifestation of your internal processes. So boards have the right to go into closed session, no doubt. There are things that that don't necessarily need that fit the requirements laid out by the Open Meetings Act for closed session. However, I also agree with an editorial that was in the Sentinel a couple of weeks ago by a local lawyer that said that closed session doesn't exist in court. And one of the things that was noted very early on was that there is, if you're going to be transparent, you're going to obey the letter of the law as well as the spirit behind the letter of the law, and that's a manifestation of transparency. You can do a flex. I mean, you can flex.
It's called integrity, Chris.
Oh yeah, you can flex. You can go really close to the line, and but is that the reason? Was the line the reason the rule was created? There was a motivation behind it. If you're not true to the motivation, then are you truly fulfilling I don't feel you're truly fulfilling the definition of what it means to be a transparent public servant.
Well, that takes up our Q&A session. So I'm going to invite Chris and Mark to return to their seats, and I'm going to invite the audience to give them a round of applause, because if we don't, then it makes for an awkward walk-off.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Let's check, man. Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us.
All right, so we're going to wind this thing down. We got maybe 10 minutes here. What we do in the
plane,
podcast
as you normally say, we're going to land the plane.
We're going to land this plane. Shawn,
Nick,
Shawn, do you have any final takeaways? I mean, this was a big session, and for you in the audience, I appreciate you being here and sitting with us, because this is a lot to talk about. So you're big troopers here.
A lot to take in.
A lot to take in.
That's why you listen to the podcast again later, and you can really absorb it all in.
Yeah, go to that podcast. What's our podcast? Common Good Conversations. You can find it on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts.
I love how you answered my question there. I vocalized that very well.
Did you ask my takeaway? I don't want to talk. You go ahead.
No, you go. You're good at it. You're better at it than I am.
Takeaways.
But I did learn there is no S on Meijer. Sorry, there's no S on Meijer.
There is no S in Meijer. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And a natty pod apparently cannot be used by our father-in-law.
Well, we don't know yet. Yeah, I mean, he still has to get into that.
I could text him real quick. We can find out. Don't want to leave them a cliffhanger.
He was supposed to be here today, but he's not feeling very well.
Yep.
Oh man, a takeaway.
I feel like we covered a lot of ground today. And,
we did.
And I really appreciated the Q&A by the audience, by the way. You guys are great tonight.
Thank you very much for your questions.
For providing us with questions for the candidates and everything, and it was really fun having, two sides of the aisle up here actually communicating, because I noticed that tonight is they were, on a couple times, seemed like they were a little bit on the same page agreement-wise. Different side a little bit, but not here and not here, which is something I've been looking to see, is some communication and, some semi-agreements on certain things, which is a baby step towards, I think, bigger and better things, I hope. Mm-hmm. Plus, they're not running in the same districts, so they could work together as commissioners.
Yeah, that's what I thought was most interesting about this segment, because not only one for the audience here, it gives a visual cue into how these commissioners, if elected, or these candidates, if elected to the Board of Commissioners, might work with each other.
Yeah.
But just in general, I mean, this is not a big table. I mean, so Mark and Chris are sitting side by side and answering, some difficult questions.
Some big ones.
And they're not absolutely agreeing on all of the things.
Nope.
But
not shutting each other down either, which is what I've been waiting to see.
Right. And that's I think this will be there will be some video to this, but just to see the body language, to see what's embodied in answering the questions and how they interact with each other. I mean, this is just what we hope to showcase. When we talk to candidates and how they might work with other folks, because it is about
on your notes.
It's about something.
It's about finding the common good in conversations.
Where is that piece? Genuine belonging, serving the needs of the entire community over self-interest and partisan interest alone.
Did that just come off the top of your head?
It did after I found my notes. All right, any other takeaway?
No. I'm about ready to go over there and get myself a drink, because I've been out of my bourbon for about an hour and a half, and I feel pretty dry.
I still got a bit. Hey, we're going to wrap this thing up here. So you can follow this program on, as I already mentioned, places as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can also check out our website when you go to votecommongood-wm.org, and we'd hope you sign up for our weekly newsletter where we let you know events like this are coming up. We let you know what new episodes we are dropping, and just other voter engagement things.
Yep. And if you guys have any other questions for us afterwards, after we're done here and we're getting a drink, and any suggestions on what you think might help the podcast move along a little bit on things to cover, feel free to approach us and say your 2 cents.
Take those things to Shawn. Follow us on Facebook.
'Cause I'm the brains of this operation.
You are the brains of this organization. Follow us on Facebook. We are just like at just below 1,000 followers. We're about at 900. So if we can push up to 1,000 followers, it just helps with the Facebook algorithm to get us in those spaces. So we really appreciate you being here. And this is my final thing before we get out. This is my PBS moment where I express my gratitude in saying that we need viewers like you. We need your support to keep things going, to help us inspire, energize, and mobilize the good people of West Michigan in 2024. So I'm asking if you could chip in $10, $25, $50, or if you're a big roller, $100, or any amount that'll help us create deeper narratives at the intersection of faith and politics for the common good. And when you donate, you can donate by using the QR codes at your table there, or you can go to the back table and we can hook you up with some t-shirts, stickers, and yard signs like this one right here that says, "I will support common good candidates." So this will keep us going with the podcast, get out the vote rallies, and educational voter engagements.
Very well said.
Finally landing the plane. Thanks everybody for joining this special episode of Common Good Conversations. And this is where our music guy would cue the outgoing music. There he is.
Hey, there
Thank
we
you,
are.
Alec.
Hey, look at that. It's like we're professionals.
Be sure to share
Thank
this
you very
program
much.
with your family and friends. Till next time, be the common good in West Michigan. Grace and peace.
You guys have a good one. Thanks for coming.